Hey everyone, quick one. If you were in the hero's shoes, would you choose revenge or forgive? Comment which and why. Now let's dive into the story. The needle cracked right in the middle of the autoclave tray. It made this tiny, high pitched snap, just enough to be heard over the hum of the sterilizer. I didn't flinch. I just dropped it into the biohazard bin and reached for the next one. Then came the door slam. Hey, look, it's the Queen of Pipettes, Marcus said, loud enough to turn heads. Didn't think I'd find you in the dish pit, Liz. What happened? Harvard run out of miracles? My name's Alyssa Carter. I'm 36. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I run calibration and disposal at Orion Medical Labs, officially. Marcus strolled in like he owned the place. He didn't. But our last name still carried some weight around here, especially with the juniors who didn't know better. I didn't lift my head, just kept arranging the batch trays by ID code. Double-checked the color seals, straight lines, no waste. Big shot farmer rock star turned glorified syringe washer, he added, walking right past me toward the centrifuge team. Guess we all fall eventually. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. A couple of texts chuckled. Rains, the new hire, looked frozen. No one said a word, but you could feel it shift. The way a room feels when someone's bleeding and no one knows if they're supposed to help. I picked up the broken tray. Reset the autoclave temperature. Didn't give Marcus the look he wanted. That's when the air changed again. Fast this time. Dr. Elias Kincaid walked in. The entire room snapped straight. Even Marcus. He scanned the bench, nodded once, and then paused. His eyes landed on the edge of my lab coat, on the faint outline of a badge tucked just inside the left pocket. The patch was old, faded, stitched to hell, but the insignia still held. "You've done real work, haven't you?" he said. Not like a question, like recognition. Marcus turned slow. His smirk twitched, faltered. Kincaid kept talking, voice low but clear. "That's a field badge. Not many of those left in circulation. I still didn't look up. Just placed the tray on the platform, pressed start, and logged the timestamp. Behind me, whispers died. Jokes dried up. Everyone was listening now, but not to Marcus anymore. I slid the fresh set of trays onto the next bench, checked my gloves for tears, then finally looked up, just enough to meet Rain's eyes and nod toward the logs. "Batch ready for analysis," I said. Then I turned, gloves snapping as I peeled them off. The room was quiet as steel. I didn't stop walking. Didn't need to. I kept walking that day in the lab, straight past the sterilizers, past the cold wall where notes went to die. I didn't need applause. I didn't need Marcus to shut up. I'd already been through worse. A year earlier, I stood under a gray Ohio sky in a too-tight black dress, the kind with sleeves you can't roll up. The casket sat in front of me like a sealed insult. White lilies, matching suits, people whispering who paid for what. Our father was in that box, dead before retirement, throat burned out from years in the chemical labs. No one dared talk about the cause, but we all knew. I barely heard the priest. My hand stayed locked on the service program, fingers pressed to the paper like it might hold me together. Then I noticed her, Emily. My sister stood 6 rows back with her phone angled low, half tucked under a folded bulletin, recording me. Not the service, not the speech, me. I didn't move right away, my jaw locked, my vision sharpened, too sharp. I caught the red dot blinking on her screen. She wasn't being subtle. Then I felt it, a buzz on my hip, one quick pulse from my phone. Silent alert from Brandon. My husband knew I hated funerals more than I feared operations. He was 20 years federal before retirement, now private security. I didn't even look at the screen, just pressed the mic in my collar with my thumb and said one word under my breath. Auburn. And like flipping a damn switch, everything changed. 2 men stepped out from opposite ends of the gathering. Looked like second cousins in church coats, but I knew them both from DC. Another 3 slid sideways out of the rows. That quiet buzz of fake mourning cracked. Chairs shifted. Air moved. Emily froze, like a mouse caught mid-scamper. One agent took her phone. She didn't fight. She didn't even speak. Brandon stepped up behind me and whispered, "You're clear." I walked straight to her. No yelling, no slap. Just truth. "You're grieving?" "Record that," I told her. "You just used Dad's death to bait a reaction. And now you don't get one." The rest of the service blurred. But that moment, that stayed. I learned something under that canopy of fake tears and stifled sobs. Grief is fast, but clarity is faster. You don't flinch, you move, you decide. That was the last time I played the part they expected. Since that day, everything changed. Even how I sat, how I held a pipette, how I walked down a corridor, no extra steps, no wasted emotion. My gloves fit better. My voice got quieter, not timid, controlled. That funeral became my reset button. The day I stopped performing grief and started owning purpose. Now, I still think about it sometimes. When the lab is silent and the machines are humming steady, when the team around me shuffles and scrambles and chases approval, I don't chase anything because I know what it looks like when people pretend to mourn you while trying to film the fall. My posture now? That came from that moment. Emily's red recording light blinking under a veil and me refusing to cry on cue. There was a time I'd have lashed out, said too much, broken too fast. Not anymore. The girl they tried to bait at the graveside, she's dead too, buried right next to my father. I walked out of that funeral in low heels, no tears, jaw locked, and I haven't moved backwards since. Back in the records room, I peeled off my gloves, scanned my last tray batch, and clocked out early. No one asked why. They never do. I took the back stairwell, 3 flights down, no cameras, past the decon tom doors, and into the basement utility corridor. Everything smelled like old bleach and heat tape. I knocked twice on the water panel behind the fire extinguisher, then opened the latch. Inside was a plain keypad and an even plainer gray door. It buzzed open. Kincaid stood near the edge of the small briefing room, arms folded. The only other person there was Director Lohman, tall, flat-voiced, always looked like someone who'd rather be filing war crimes than dealing with biotech leaks. No handshake, no greetings, just business. Your badge tracked 32 seconds late last Friday, Lohman said, pulling up a heat map of the lab on his tablet. Explain. There was an untagged cart in Corridor B, I said. I waited it out so I wouldn't have to log a proximity exception. He raised an eyebrow but nodded. Cautious. Always, I said. Kincaid gestured for me to sit. We've got a pattern now. 3 weekends in a row. Someone's ghost walking. I pulled a flashcard from my coat pocket and slid it across the table. Here's what I've got so far, I said. 4 anomalies and calibration logs, 2 data stream reroutes, both during off hours. If you layer the badge movement and the security access logs, they don't match. And no one's caught it but you? Lohman asked. No one looks at the logs I see, I said. That's the point. You don't flag the janitor when sample trays go missing. You flag the scientist. I'm not either. I'm just there. Kincaid sat beside me. Neuron 9 is the crown jewel. You understand how serious this is? I nodded. Regenerative synapse response. We're not curing colds here. Someone pushes this thing too early. People don't just stay paralyzed. They stop thinking. We're talking brain hemorrhage, cognitive fractures, system collapse. Lohman leaned back. And the leaks traced to this facility. He wasn't asking, just confirming. I pulled out my daily route sheet, showed the sections I was rotating through. Every sample tray I touch, every tag I log, every waste bin I seal, it's all cover. I check routing paths. I match chemical trace IDs. If a batch vanishes, I know it. Kincaid tapped the table. We've had 2 flagged exports in 2 months. Both disappeared off the grid within 24 hours. The shadow market's biting. And they think I'm just washing tools, I said. Let's keep it that way. Lohman didn't smile. He never does. But his next words were the closest thing I'd ever heard to a vote of confidence. You have clearance to dig deeper. Start cross-referencing lab tech assignments and digital access. You'll be ghost supported by Rook. Any heat, Kincaid takes the fall. Not you. Kincaid added, we'll block any blowback. But you need to move faster. If this gets out, it kills not just the research, it kills people. The wrong dose, the wrong patient, and it's not recovery. It's ruin. I nodded. Understood. Lohman stood. Good. Keep it invisible. You're not here to make arrests. You're here to trap the leak I stood to. And what happens if I find them? He looked at me for a long second. That's above your pay grade. Just get them in the net. The room went quiet. I gathered my folder and badge. Just before I turned to leave, Kincaid stepped closer. If the wrong name ends up in that net, family or not, can you still hold the line? I didn't hesitate. I wouldn't be here if I couldn't. He nodded once. That was it. I walked out, locked the panel, and made my way back to the lab. Past the bright windows, the vending machines, the nervous interns. Everything looked clean on the surface. That was the trick. But I knew better. Someone in this place was selling a miracle that wasn't finished. And I had exactly one shot to stop them, before it hit the wrong hands, or worse, before it hit patients. I passed the break room, badge clipped, gloves tucked in my pocket. A cart rolled by with open samples. Wrong temp, no tags. I flagged it to Rains without stopping. That's how it started 2 years ago. A cart, a shipment, a missing batch of Neuron 9 trial serum that never made it to archive. Marcus had been lead on the clinical side, managing transport logs and test files. He signed off on the release but never confirmed delivery. 14 vials vanished between the cold room and storage. Audit flags lit up like a Christmas tree. I got pulled in because I'd handled the calibration data on the same run. I didn't accuse, I didn't speculate. I gave them the raw truth. Every skipped double check, every mislabeled box, the timestamp where Marcus closed out early with no secondary sign-off. My name went on the audit report. His name got dropped from the promotion list. He walked past me in the cafeteria the next day like I wasn't even there. That silence lasted through the next year. Not one word, not even at Dad's funeral. He stood by the casket like a stranger, head turned just enough to keep me out of view. Never spoke to me, never looked at me. That was the price of honesty. I turned the corner near the delivery entrance, heading for waste transfer. That's when I saw him, Marcus, talking to a man I didn't recognize. White coat, wrong length, no visible badge. The guy looked nervous, kept one hand on a padded case. Marcus leaned in, whispering something. I ducked behind the secondary storage door and waited. Their exchange was quick, less than 30 seconds. The man slipped the case into Marcus's bag. No handshake, just a nod and separate exits. Marcus didn't even scan out. Slipped through the side door like he'd done it before. I stepped out once they were gone. No hesitation. I opened my field log. Time, 13:06. Location, South Exit Delivery Corridor. Visual confirmation of unregistered exchange. I noted coat description, height estimate, and item type. I tore the page clean, folded it once, and dropped it into the secure Intel slot behind the nitrogen tanks. Rook would see it within the hour. Then I kept walking. Back to my bench, back to my gloves, back to tray 77B, still half-logged. No calls, no emotion, just action. Marcus always thought I was soft because I didn't swing first. What he never understood was that I don't need to swing. I watch, I record, I deliver. He had a chance to clean his record after the audit, but he never changed. He just got sneakier. Now he was in something deeper, something I could feel in my gut. Because when you've handled recovery vials and cracked containment kits, you know what panic smells like. That man he met, he was scared. And Marcus? He didn't even flinch. It was the same look he gave me when the audit panel finished reading my report. The look that said, "You chose them over me." Number. I didn't. I chose the data. I chose the facts. Because science doesn't care who your brother is. And if he's part of this leak, if he's selling off a half-baked neural weapon before it's stabilized, then I'll be the one who stops him. Again. I stayed late that night. Past the last shift change, lights low, no coat. Just me and the hum of machines that don't sleep. The others had filtered out, one by one, except the janitor and me. He never looked my way. I liked him for that. I had clearance to access the security server through the diagnostics terminal behind the clean imaging chamber. Looked like I was checking scan parameters. Looked routine. I pulled up the corridor cams. South Delivery Hall, West Side Blind Corner. I knew the angles, knew the skips in coverage. Whoever was leaking this crap knew them too. But blind doesn't mean invisible. Not when you overlay timestamps and motion triggers. Clip loaded. Marcus walked in from the north side. Same coat, same folder. The mystery man stepped out from the side door, fast and twitchy, like he wasn't used to this kind of job. The two of them stood half in shadow, but angle C4 was tilted, just enough. You couldn't see their faces, didn't need to, because the sound came through. Not voices, plastic, a tiny snap of plastic on skin, like a drive casing pressed into a sweaty palm. I scrubbed it back, played it again. Snap. That was it. That was the moment. Data handoff, raw and clear. I could have sent it right then, flagged the file, encrypted the clip, sent it to Rook with a "this is it" subject line. But no, that wasn't enough. One fish gets you headlines. A net gets you the supplier, the buyer, and the whole damn black market ring. I needed the net. I tapped out a secure message. Rook confirmed handoff on C4 at 17:06. No ID, but audio got the exchange. Not sending footage yet. I want to run bait. 2 minutes passed. Rook agreed. You prep the mouse. I'll set the trap. I opened the mock-up kit we'd been building for weeks. 2 vials, labeled like standard calibration samples. Inside wasn't serum, but scrambled data with a ghost tracker buried 6 layers deep. Looked like neural prototype research. Read like a full report. Touch it wrong, it sends a silent ping straight to Rook's side channel. I attached the bait capsule to a false routing slip and wrapped it in cooling gel, just like we did for imaging samples. This wasn't a guess, it was a trap dressed like routine work. I knew Marcus wouldn't check. He never did. He trusted the system more than he trusted people. That was his weakness. I coded the packet for Lab 4 calibrations and logged it under my ID. Nothing suspicious. Just a cleanup tech handling diagnostics. The moment it moved without clearance, the signal would activate. I sat back, stared at the screen, and watched the hallway freeze on that one blurry frame. Marcus. The handoff. The folder. All the times I defended him to Dad. All the times I'd looked the other way at how sloppy he got. Not this time. He'd stepped into the dark and thought I wouldn't follow. Thought I'd flinch because of blood. He forgot I stopped bleeding for him a long time ago. This wasn't revenge. This was responsibility. I shut the monitor off, locked the tray, and placed the bait pouch into the secure box for next day transfer. First stop in the morning. Lab 4. Last stop for whoever picked it up. Let's see who bites. Next morning, I loaded the bait into a plain gray courier pouch, sealed it tight with a cooling pack, and signed it under Chamber Calibrations, Batch E4. No one asked why I ran the courier myself. Nobody really questions the woman who changes the biohazard bins. I logged the transfer into the system with a calibration code that looked routine. Hell, was routine to anyone not watching the tags close enough. Midday hit fast. Shift change. The lab buzzed like it always did. Doors opening, carts rolling, interns faking confidence they didn't have. I leaned over the reagent counter, clipboard in hand, ticking off chemicals on a refill sheet. My phone buzzed once in my back pocket. One word. Alive. The beacon had pulsed. Across the corridor, I spotted Marcus sliding the pouch into his messenger folder. Just like that. Smooth, no pause, no glance. He didn't even look in my direction. I kept my hands moving, eyes half lowered, as if I was checking lot numbers on the shelf. My pulse stayed flat. Not from calm, training. I knew how to watch without staring, how to track a man without leaving footprints. Marcus turned down the west corridor. I gave it a 10 count, then moved. Clipboard still in hand, gloves on. Calm walk, not too slow, not too fast. He led me past the calibration wing, through the older section. Unused pathology halls, mostly storage now. No cameras past the yellow line. That's where he met him again. Same man, same coat. Still wrong. They disappeared through an old side door marked Lab Storage, Archive B. I slipped around the opposite wall, close enough to catch the hum of electronics powering up. Then I heard it. The click of a drive sliding into a terminal, followed by a low chirp, barely audible, unless you were waiting for it. The beacon fired. That chirp wasn't for them. It was for us. I checked my watch. 3 seconds later, the hallway light above me flickered twice. Signal confirmed. Relay activated. Rook had eyes. Then came the noise. Boots moving fast. Doors slammed open at the north entrance. Radio chatter crackled. 2 inside, hands visible. Secure the drives. Copy. Suspect 1 is Carter Marcus. Confirmed ID. Marcus shouted something I couldn't make out. The man with him tried to run. Didn't get far. One of the agents clipped him mid-step. Quiet, clean, federal style. I saw the flash of cuffs, the glint of a sidearm, the steady commands flying out like bullets. Bag the hardware. Pull the server. Confirm chain of custody on all drives. Marcus locked eyes with me as they forced him to his knees. Not rage, not confusion. Just this hollow sort of pain that didn't ask for anything. I walked up, slow, gloves still on. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I reached into my lab coat pocket and pulled out an old photo. Me and him, maybe 9 and 10 years old, standing next to matching bikes with helmet hair and stupid smiles. Dad had taken it. I crouched next to him, held it out. You can start over, I said. Not from here. He didn't take the photo, just stared at it. The agents moved him to his feet. One held the evidence pouch like it was radioactive. Maybe it was, in a way. They took him out the back, through the same doors where the leak had started. I didn't flinch. No tears, no relief. Just a bone-deep tired in my joints I couldn't shake. Back in the main lab, I walked past the whiteboard. Someone had scrawled one word in red marker, big and stupid. Snitch. I grabbed the eraser, wiped it clean, then wrote in black underneath. Sample review at 1600. The room stayed dead quiet. Not one person spoke. I didn't need them to. I'd done the work. Now it was time to see who else had blood on their gloves. I stood just outside the pathology wing while the last pieces of the operation fell into place. No alarms, no panic, just the cold, practiced sweep of federal protocol tightening its grip. The other man, ID confirmed as Jeremy Wolf, independent contractor, no real employer, tied to 2 shell companies, was already zip-tied and gagged. His laptop, bag, and hard drives were sealed in evidence pouches by a tech in gloves and wraparounds. Rook stood over it all, running commands into a ruggedized tablet. Data confirms outbound duplication, he muttered. 3 mirror copies. 1 to darknet node, 2 to physical keys. You stopped it just in time. I nodded once. Wolf sat against the wall now, head down, shoulders slumped. He didn't look like some mastermind. He looked like someone who'd gambled too big and lost fast. Marcus was standing under the flickering light by the archive exit, wrists bound. The same agent who'd tackled Wolf now stood behind him, steady hand on his shoulder. Marcus didn't resist, didn't speak, but he looked at me, said my name once. Alyssa. That's all. He didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't try to spin some last-minute excuse. Just stood there like the floor had vanished under him, and he was still deciding whether to fall or fly. I stepped forward, slow, pulled the photo from my coat pocket. Our bikes. That summer, we got grounded for sneaking out past curfew. I used to think that was the worst thing he'd ever hide from me. I held it out. You can start over, I said quiet. Not from here. He stared at the picture, didn't take it, didn't look away either. Like he couldn't tell if I was offering a hand or delivering a final hit. Then the agent led him out, down the hallway, boots echoing sharp against tile. He didn't look back, and I didn't move. No one said congratulations. No one clapped me on the back. It wasn't that kind of win. Rook gave me a nod before disappearing through the double doors, gear in tow. The lab around me exhaled, slow and cautious, like it had just realized it was still breathing. I walked back to my bench. Same tray, same clipboard, same old gloves. You'd think after a sting like that, the air would feel different, charged or hollow. It didn't. It just felt heavy. I didn't feel proud. I felt bone tired, not the kind sleep fixes, the kind that settles in your ribs and makes everything feel like moving through syrup. I went to the whiteboard like always. Someone had already left their opinion in red. Snitch. The letters were big, jagged, rushed, but the point was clear. I grabbed the eraser, wiped it clean without a word, then picked up the black marker and wrote, Sample review at 1600. The message wasn't subtle. It wasn't supposed to be. The room stayed silent. No one joked. No one challenged me. Some kept their eyes down. A few looked straight at me like they were waiting to see if I'd break. I didn't. Rains paused near the sink, opened his mouth, then shut it again. Good call. This wasn't over. Not for me. Not for them. Word would spread. Sides would form. People would ask themselves if I was a hero or a traitor. That was fine. Let them guess. I ran my gloved finger along the edge of the last sample tray. Steady, clean, no blood. No proof I'd just dismantled a whole operation 2 feet from the autoclave. Let the rumors spin. Let the whispers do their laps. The shift kept moving. And so did I. The next few days felt like walking across cracked ice. People moved quieter. They glanced over shoulders more. You could feel the split, even in the way doors opened. Some fast, some just enough to slide through without making eye contact. The base didn't break. It just bent around me. Some started calling me a hero. Said it in low tones over their phones or while pouring coffee. She took down a leak. She caught it before the public ever knew. Brave. Others went the opposite way. Snitch. Fed plant. No loyalty. I didn't answer either side. I kept my hands moving, scanning inventory sheets, logging transfer logs, recalibrating the fluoroscopes. No extra talk, no emotion. Every system needs routine, and routine starts somewhere. Midway through a diagnostics check, Kincaid walked up and set a bottle of water next to my tray. No words at first, just stood there like he was watching the work do itself. Then he said it. "You did what was needed." I didn't look up. "So why does it still feel like I set the building on fire?" He shrugged. "Truth scorches. Doesn't mean it wasn't necessary." Then he walked away. I stayed late that night, not because I had to, but because I couldn't stand the idea of walking through the parking lot with people pretending not to stare. Rains approached during final shutdown. He looked like he'd been rehearsing the question for hours. "Did you really turn in your brother?" he asked. I set down the pipette, glanced over. "I turned in a breach," I said. "Families survive truth better than lies." He didn't argue, just nodded and walked out. That line stuck with me, even after I said it. I didn't know if it was true. I wanted it to be. I had to believe it was, or else what was the point? 2 days later, I got a plain envelope in my locker. No name, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, handwritten. "I'll think about what you said." No apology, no emotion. Just that one sentence. I stared at it for a while, not mad, not moved, just still. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't even a start, but it was something. I took the letter back to my bench and slid it into the old mint tin I kept tucked behind my badge reels. Inside were two things: the photo of us with the bikes and a scrap of the original calibration paper from the day I first tagged Neuron 9 under its cover name. That was the day this whole thing really began. The tin didn't lock. It wasn't meant to. Just a small container to keep the past from getting lost. Not peace, not war. Just the start of thinking. The chatter in the base never really stopped, but it faded the way all noise does. People had work to do, machines needed cleaning, samples had to be logged. You can only whisper for so long before the routine eats it all up again. And me? I showed up, reviewed logs, ran backups, checked for signs of breach. Because just like grief sharpens you, exposure grounds you. And once you've stood in the fire, you don't flinch at smoke. I was halfway through checking the scanner alignment, gloves on, hood up, bench clean, when I saw Kincaid walking toward me. He didn't say anything, just set a small square package down beside my tools, wrapped in plain gray cloth, sealed with a wax sticker I hadn't seen in years. He gave a short nod, almost respectful, then turned and walked away without a word. I peeled the wax seal off and unfolded the cloth. Inside was a patch. Same insignia from my old field days. Black thread on dark navy, the winged helix, but now edged in silver. Not shiny, dull, serious. Heavy in meaning, not in weight. Field insignia like that don't come in envelopes. You don't apply for it. You don't request it. You get handed one if someone in a locked room somewhere decides you did something worth being quiet about. I didn't smile, didn't tear up, just held it in my palm. I reached into my locker drawer and pulled out the tin, opened it. The photo, the calibration scrap, Marcus's letter, and the old patch, faded, stitched through. One corner burned from that Desert Op 7 years back. I laid the new one next to it. Didn't pin it on, not yet. Recognition's not a trophy. It's a warning. You've been here before. You know the cost. I went back to work. Pipette checks, tray balances, recalibrating the auto sampler. Didn't need a speech. I had what I needed. Rains passed behind me, paused like he had something burning a hole in his throat. "You gonna fly again?" he asked. I didn't look up. "Not yet," I said. "This is where I do the most good." He didn't argue, just moved on. The lab around me returned to its usual rhythm. Metal clinks, rubber seals popping, low hum of machines that don't care who betrayed who. I slid the new patch under the edge of my tray, out of view, not hidden, just resting. Because this patch wasn't for display. It wasn't something I'd stitch on to show off. It was a compass now. Quiet, internal. The kind that keeps you walking straight when things go crooked. Recognition's nice, sure, but it doesn't bring back what you lost to earn it. It doesn't rewind the sting of turning in your brother. Doesn't smooth out the whisper campaigns still crawling through the break room. Doesn't clear your name in the hearts of people who already made up their minds. What it does do, if you're lucky, is remind you that somewhere, someone saw you take the hit and decided you were still worth trusting again. I pressed the sample tray into its slot, checked the temperature, logged the entry. No shaking hands, no rush. My name won't be carved into plaques. That's not what I'm here for. I keep the system clean. I run the checks. And when the leak shows up again, and it will, I'll be ready. The patch can stay under my sleeve, but I won't. The lab quieted as evening fell, humming low like a machine on standby. Fluorescence dimmed in patches. Somewhere in the back, the auto sanitizer kicked on with a hiss. I finished the last line in the batch log, lot 442D, verified, sealed, signed. My handwriting was steady, block print, no flare. A trainee wandered up holding a cloth pouch from supply, face pinched like he wasn't sure what he'd done wrong yet. "I think this was meant for you," he said, offering it out. I took one glance. Wrong color, wrong unit. The patch inside was yellow. QA Division, Level 2. "Nope," I said. "That one's not mine." He blinked. "Sorry, I'll take it back." "Don't worry," I said, handing it back. "Right patch'll find the right sleeve." Eventually, he left a little straighter than he came in. A few minutes later, one of the junior techs was fumbling with a lid calibration. I stepped over, adjusted the hinge, and tested the seal myself. "Not locking right," she said. "It will," I told her. "Just needs alignment." Pressure's off, I clicked it into place, checked the PSI readout, and held it steady until the numbers balanced. "See that?" I said. "Perfect fit. No force. Just patience." She nodded, watching every move. "Change is maintenance," I added, "not fireworks." I moved on before she could reply. At my bench, I pulled the final component tray into position, rechecked every notch, every seal, every entry point. My lane was clear. My count was right. My tools were honest. I didn't need applause. I needed function. The noise, the whispers, the side eyes, the tension would fade. Always did. Systems outlive drama. I packed up, scrubbed down, logged out. Then I walked the corridor, slow but firm. Same hallway where I'd watched them take Marcus out. Same corner where the bait changed hands. That memory didn't shake me. The new patch rode under my sleeve, pressed against my skin like a reminder. Not a badge, not a decoration, a compass. This is how machines stay ready. This is how lives stay safe. Do the work, sign the work, let it stand.